Yo, what is up, guys? We are wrapping up week 4 of the January series on buyer's perspective. This month, we are talking about email communication, all of it that relates to you as a sales rep and the buyer at a retailer chain. So, if you haven't seen the first, second, or third episode, go ahead and pause, go check those out first. And this week we are going over reliability over time. And what it means is we're really going to break down building a system and a process that you can follow that will build that trust over time. Because ultimately, trust isn't built just on one email or one message. It's really built through the patterns that you have. And so we're going to make sure that you hold a high standard for being consistent and reliable when it comes to your follow ups. So before we get into how to actually do this, I want to explain what it really is and what happens, how it affects the buyer. First, let's take a look at what happens when you don't have that high standard and you have inconsistent follow ups. Your promises aren't really tracked and they're not clear to the buyer. The conversations really restart without any context, and the buyers have to remind the rep what is going on and what has needs to happen. Some of those things, they might seem small or, it's not too big of a deal, but when you start doing it consistently over time or you're missing consistently over time, that's where it really builds up and it does affect how the buyer works with you. And what happens is really, they're going to lower their expectations of you and they're going to stop relying on you and they're going to limit engagement to really the most necessary communication you have to have. And it really, we don't want it to get that way. So that's really important that we follow these standards and this idea of following a process so that it's not built on your emotion. It's not built on your intuition. It's built on a system that is repeatable. And that's when you have really high standards, is that you have a system that you can repeat over and over and over again at the same level. So let's break it down. Here is how you build trust through consistency. You got to follow up the same way every time. You got to close the loop and you got to make it easy for buyers to rely on you and just make it easier for them to do their job without any extra effort. That's what really makes a sales rep stand out. In your follow up emails, you really want to build this consistent pattern. You you have a lot of different options in how you can do this depending on the tools that you have available. If you have a CRM, you can use that to track when you send emails and create reminders when you need to follow up. If you have Outlook or Gmail, you can actually just schedule an email to come back to you at a certain time. And so what I do is through Outlook, I'll send an email and then I'll go back to it and I'll schedule it to come back at whatever that time frame is that needs to happen. So it could be next week, it could be 2 weeks, or it could be 4 weeks, depending on how long that time frame is, what the topic is, what the ask is and what kind of action needs to be taken. But when I'm reaching out to people, not necessarily buyers, but when I'm reaching out to people, I put a reminder in just through the Outlook tool that I use. And it makes it really easy because I'll just set it for like 8 a.m. on whatever day. And when I pop onto the computer, it will just show those emails that I need to follow up with if I haven't gotten a response yet. So then that really cuts out a lot of the noise about what I'm talking about because consistency really is the big thing. When you are inconsistent, the buyer doesn't really see you as a reliable partner. Even if you're not a partner yet, it can really help build what they think of you and your reputation because you are showing up and being consistent with a process in place. And whatever you have pre-partnership, if they can trust that that's going to carry over into a partnership, then you are setting yourself up extremely well when you have a system in place and you can be consistent with it. So that is really what the standard is. You have to be consistent. You have to create that system, whether that is CRM, Outlook, or Gmail. Make sure to have reminders, set them up, and create kind of a timeline of when certain things need certain requests. Some of it might be tied to a deadline. And so you have to be cognizant of that. However, if you are just doing cold outreach and you want to stay consistent with them, I generally share that you should follow a 7-14-14-28 rhythm. And what that means is if I send an email on a Monday, the first follow up is going to happen that next Monday. If I don't hear from that one in 2 weeks, so that's my 14, then I'm going to follow up again. And then I'm going to give it another 14 days. And if I don't hear back, I'm going to follow up again. And then at that point, if you don't hear back in 28 days, you follow up every single month. So every 4 weeks, you follow up and make sure that you are being consistent with your tone and you are being consistent with your timing at that point, because you never know when that category review could be coming up. You never know when that opportunity might show up. And because they've seen the emails, they see you and they recognize you as somebody who has been consistent with following up, and they'll see the chain. They'll see, oh, this person emailed 3 or 4 or 7 times. And that makes a difference. That builds trust over time. And it actually helps you build your case for why you are a good partner, because you can be consistent and make their job easier by being the constant and being the person that will follow up regardless of, whatever is going on. You have a system in place. And the last thing I want to mention today is go back to some of your emails or some of the follow-ups that you need to do and just ask yourself and think about the buyer relationships that you have and ask, am I somebody that is reliable? Like if somebody asked a buyer, what do you think of this person? Are they going to be able to say reliable? And is that going to be natural, or they have to think about like, well, what is it about this person that that stands out? And, if you have to think about it, then I think we all know that what that really means. And there's some opportunity here. So I really encourage you, go take a look at your Outlook, Gmail, or CRM, build a process and just write it out. Keep it simple. Make sure that you can do it regularly without adding a lot of extra effort on your side, because the simpler you can make it, the easier it's going to be to implement very consistently. All right, guys, that is it for the January series about email communication. Make sure to stay tuned if you like these types of videos and the series like this one, and make sure to subscribe. Next week and next month going into February, we're going to be covering meetings and the various types of meetings that sales reps have with buyers. That covers virtual, in-person, at the booth, like when you're at a trade show, and casual lunch and dinner meetings as well. So all of the ins and outs of how you can show up with the highest standard and make yourself stand out to all the other sales reps. All right, guys, I will catch you later. See ya.